Don't know.
Do we, hold on one second. We still have everyone? Yes.
I'm here.
Yes.
James.
Okay. All right. Unless somebody objects, I'm going to start.
Please do.
Welcome to the April 28th, 2021 BAR Large Virtual Meeting. My name is John Robinson. The other board members present today are Luda Sobchuk, Leon Scott, and James Metters. We may have Jay White joining us shortly. The city staff present this afternoon are Tori Parrish, Lawrence Courtney, and Linda Bennett. The order of the meeting will be as follows. There will be an introduction and overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the public. There will then be an applicant presentation with a 10-minute time limit, or with additional time as determined by the chair, and any questions of the applicant by the board or staff. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, be they owners, developers, designers, consultants, etc., should speak during this portion rather than public comment. The application presentation is then followed by a public comment period, which is also a 10-minute time limit or equivalent to the applicant presentation as determined by the chair. The applicant does not respond to comments made during public comment. Similarly, any member of the public should clearly state their name for the record. Public comment is followed by city staff comments and recommendations. This is followed by the applicant response or clarification to public comment and city staff comments and recommendations. There will be a 5-minute rule that applies to this. The applicant will then take a seat and will only speak if called upon by the board or staff. Board discussion and vote then occurs. The applicant presentation and public comment is now closed. The applicant may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by the chair by raising a hand. You can of course do this in Zoom as well, by raising their hand and waiting to be called upon, but otherwise may only speak when asked a question by a board member. No items have been withdrawn or deferred. Reminder to the public and all present, please turn off cell phones and other devices. Please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, lot coverage, and livability concerns are not the purview of this board and they cannot be voiced here. We have some additional information on meeting protocol. The staff will control the PowerPoint presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask staff in advance for the next slide during presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Video and microphone has been disabled for all attendees. Attendees, not board members or staff, will only be given the capabilities to speak when they are called on during the public comment period. The chat and question and answer functions have been disabled. During the public comment period, the applicants, meaning all team members and the public, have been required to register, indicate that they wish to, what they wish to comment on, and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Just as an in-person meeting, all applications heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you have registered and speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you need to state your name and address for the record. Those members of the public that have been registered will be called upon in order by project. The members of the public that speak are encouraged to remain in the meeting for the completion of the item that they have commented on. Staff will call the registered members of the public to speak for each project. Unregistered members of the public who raise their hand will not be called on. The board members will be polled by the chair for comments and their vote on a motion. Each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor. The chairman will reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chairman if he has not reread the motion accurately. If a board member needs to recuse, he or she will temporarily be removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into executive session, they will call into a separate conference line, and all video and audio on Zoom will be temporarily turned off until they're ready to return to the regular meeting. Staff will issue meeting results, including staff comments and a board motion to the applicant following the meeting. Results will also be posted on the city website at www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR. For additional information, please contact BAR at capital BAR at charleston-sc.gov or visit www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR if you are experiencing technical difficulties during the meeting. This is a reminder that as this is a public hearing, these proceedings are being recorded. All right. Mrs. Parrish, what is agenda item 1 for this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agenda item number 1 is from the project of 10 Society Street, which is 10 Society Street, 31 and 32 Lawrence Street. This is a request for the approval of the mock-up panel for 32 Lawrence Street only. This is in the Heights District 56/30V, and it's in the Old City District. And as far as context, this aerial view shows the 2 parcels that are related to this project, and 32 Lawrence is that top part at the very north there. Washington Street is running north and south to the right. East Bay is running north and south to the left. And for reference, that is Harris Teeter at the bottom of the screen. This is an existing photo prior to demolition. This was actually, I had to figure this one out. This was looking east on Society Street with the project. Actually, it's looking east on Society Street prior to the demolition. This is looking south on East Bay with the project site behind you and to the left. And that is Harris Teeter on the left. This one is looking north on East Bay with the project site on your right side. And this is Washington Street looking south. This is east of the project site. That's my reference. That's Harris Teeter there. And then this is looking north on Washington Street. The project site is to your left. That was the Benjamin Moore building that was demolished. And we'll have the applicant present. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to lead off for the applicant?
That'll be me, Ted Risch.
All right, Mr. Risch, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm Ted Risch from LS3P, and I appreciate you taking the time to review our mock-up panel. I'll try to make a brief presentation of the panel. I know there's a busy agenda tonight, so I'll try to breeze through it. So if you want to go ahead and proceed to, I think the last image in the presentation, it should be 3 more slides. That one, that's a good one to start on. So for this panel, this is only the 32 Lawrence building, which is the north building. We have 2 more panels that are going to be reviewed at a later date. We appreciate you being able to work with us on those 2 separate submittals. Starting on the left, if you look at the bottom left corner, there's kind of a 3D axonometric drawing of the panel. We have a part of the landscape item, which is a cast stone urn atop of a pier, masonry pier. I think there was one on that item. There was a irrigation line that was taped off on the back side of that urn. And I just wanted to clarify that on the actual building, we're running the irrigation drain line down through the pier itself. So you won't see exposed irrigation lines coming down through that. To the left of that, you have the limestone stair and metal railing. Moving further to the right, you've got a projected metal panel bay and roof system. That's over a projected brick base. Further to the right of that, you have a aluminum storefront system with the cast stone header. And for that particular item, we put in 2 different sealant colors on the jamb. We prefer the lighter colored joint sealant, which appears on the right side. The dark bronze color didn't work very well with the mortar joints. You kind of see some irregularities, and with the lighter color sealant, it actually works better, and you don't see any kind of rippling effect on the mortar joint, so we're happy with that. The dryer vent above that, we have that colored, the generalized brick and mortar color, which is it's called Sherwin-Williams Swing Brown, and we're thinking that that's going to work as our generalized brick and mortar color for the project for the north building. We have a jack arch that doesn't show up on our drawing. We actually had it on the above the window, but we moved it on the actual built panel, so you could see it a little bit better. It was a little bit crammed on the ceiling of the projected canopy. So we built that maybe on the top left of your screen. You kind of see part of that jack arch there. We do have part of the upper projected cornice showing. If you go to the top left image, you can see that we did order some full-sized end blocks to install on that, but actually on the actual building, that cornice does not actually stop anywhere, so it has a die wall in all cases, so it won't. You won't see any end blocks on the actual building. I wanted to clarify that. Below that is a limestone base that you see on the center porch on Washington Street. And then to the right of that, we have the expansion joint colors, which I think one of the staff comments was the top two were very close in color, but it's actually the bottom two. I don't think you see it in this image, but the top joint sealant color that's actually installed now is the more close to the generalized brick and mortar color. And I think that's the comment number 5 from staff comments, that it was suggested that that was approved, and we feel the same with that color as well. The sandstone, which is the middle one, and the toast tan on the bottom was a little bit too light, and feels like it would have stood out a little bit more. To the right, you see the projected porch with the FRP cornice column assembly. I think another comment on this, even though the comment number, I think it's number 2, it says sealant joints and precast members seem excessive. I'm thinking that you might have meant the FRP members, which is this piece. And we agree with that. There was one sealant joint in particular that seemed in excess of our standard 1/2-inch joint. So we're going to be mindful of that and make sure that our joints do not get excessive. There was another issue on this assembly, which is the gutter assembly, which is at the leading edge of the balcony. What we had was traffic topping turning down onto the FRP fascia, and then we had a downspout and a scupper, and we're working through the constructability of that. But since it's kind of elevated and out of the purview of the public right of way, we are continuing to resolve that issue. And then on this panel, you'll see the aluminum railing and then the aluminum clad window beyond, which again, we agree that the dark bronze joint sealant, we have the 2 different colors on this one as well. And we think that the dark bronze did not go very well. So we're preferable to the lighter colored joint sealant on this window as well. I think another comment from staff number 9 was that the window had a kind of a boxy feel on the sill piece. And that's actually a sill nosing extension to work the sloped roll-lock sill for the brick. So if we were to eliminate that, we'd be introducing another item, another assembly below the window, essentially, that would we were trying to avoid. So I wanted to carefully consider that. And our recommendation is we keep the sill nosing as it's shown. And other than that, I think that's pretty much an overview of the panel. I'll open it up to the next part of the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Ms. Parrish, do we have any public comment? I think the answer earlier was no, but I'm just checking.
We do not.
Thank you. So then we'll therefore move to city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a couple of notes. It is understood that while this is a part of a larger project, the request is for approval of the mock-up for 32 Lawrence Street only. At staff review of mock-up drawings, we specifically request a full package to include details, as the board no longer has them by this point. While this mock-up is relatively simple, a full package showing all details would be required for the next mock-up of the larger 10 Society Street, 31 Lawrence Street portion of the project. In the future, mock-up packages which do not include all details will be deferred. And then staff comments. Number one, a robust QA/QC program shall be in place to address the shipping, handling, placement, and protection of all precast members. 2, sealants at joints and precast members are to be flush with the exterior form and minimized in terms of width. 3, some of this has been addressed. There's odd taping placed behind the precast urn, potentially at a drain. Please clarify what this is and whether it will be on the final precast piece. Number 4, it is understood that all metal pieces are to reflect the elimination of exposed fasteners. 5, it appears that there are 3 different sealant colors at the brick control joint. The top 2 are very close, with the uppermost color appearing a bit lighter. This lighter color also appears to be the paint color at the joint between the porch parts and at the brick wall dryer vent. Is a good generalized brick mortar blended color and is approved. 6, the generalized brick mortar blended color should be used at the joint between fenestration elements and brick returns, as well as at flashing occurring on or against brick, lintels, and other items occurring at the brick wall, which need to be visually minimized. 7, keep the brick joints uniform. Some of the head joints are excessively wide. 8, scratches to pre-finished metal surfaces shall be touched up to match existing. And 9, the additional boxy piece at the seal of the window shown at the porch seems heavy and extraneous. Staff recommends the elimination of this extra seal piece and a simplification to a more traditional seal form with seal flashing that does not exceed the face of the brick at jambs, has a hemmed edge, and is set in mastic to lay flat on the row lock seal. And the staff recommendation is approval of the mock-up for 32 Lawrence with board and staff comments.
Thank you
Thank
very much, Mrs. Parrish. Would Mr. Risch, would the applicant care to respond to the city staff?
No, I think I tried to hit on some of those comments during the presentation. So
You did, I'd agree. That was helpful. All right, we will therefore move to board discussion and a potential vote. What do my fellow board members say regarding this mock-up?
This is Luda Subchuk. May I ask a question of applicant?
Yes.
That on the porch, there's a column installation over the gutter. How that works?
So the gutter is on the leading edge of the porch, and we had it originally designed as FRP gutter integral to the cornice, which had a traffic topping turned down into it. And we're re-exploring the constructability of that, and we're potentially going to be using an aluminum channel there with an end dam. Water's not actually going to flow underneath the column, if that's what the question is.
Okay.
It's very odd how this column, where this column is. In relationship to cornice, to everything, I guess. All right, I understand what you're saying, but still odd. I'm done.
Further board comment or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this
sir.
is James Matters. I have photographs on my phone that I'm using as my outline for this. First, I agree with Luda and conceptually understand how this is to work, but it is visually difficult and looks unplanned, which makes me concerned. The second, in this same photograph, a question for Ted. All columns, we're going to see that level of joint and sealant in every column. And I know you've already said some maybe were a little, you can already see cracking in it. And so I just want to kind of ask Ted that question now.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Risch, response to that
Yeah.
question on the seams?
The actual joint you're looking at right now, I'm assuming you're referring to the joint that's on the FRP column, and
Well,
you are correct. There will be
the cursor's on it right now on your screen.
Yep. That is the joint. Yes, you are correct. And that is the appropriate width on that joint.
So, when I look at that, I think that's awful. And, it looks like, it's just a column that's split in half and caulked together. And that's, if you can back off on that a little bit, Lawrence, whoever's got the controls. So every column is going to have visually that all the way up. Okay. Next is underneath the window. I tried to track the weeps throughout the facade, and underneath the window where there's I don't know, I'm going to say a ½ inch. It might be a little bit less between the brick sill and the window itself. Does that gap remain?
That gap should be caulked, and it should be caulked on the mock-up panel and on the actual building.
Yeah. Okay. And then if you went to the top of that window, Lawrence, I don't know if you've got a photograph for that or not, but at the top of that window, excuse me, my picture went away for a minute. At the top of that window, there's almost there's not almost, there's a void on the top right side where it looks like maybe the steel lintel or the metal or some part of the makeup kind of stops, and there's a void in there. And I'm guessing that's not part of the way it'll be in its finished application.
Right. The actual building has a 6-inch leg on the lintel, which would cover that gap, and the window head is going to be sealed to that lintel. The mock-up panel has a lintel installed that's, I think, 3 inches.
And that's not what I mean, actually. I'm looking at I took a photograph where it's at the top right side, and you can kind of just stick your fingers up into the cavity behind the brick. And that's at the intersection of your, the right side of the window and the top. And I just couldn't quite, figure that out. And then where the RFP intersects with the brick itself, that appeared to be a joint that was caulked at like inch and a half. This is
that's the one that I noted in my overview also. Yeah. The joints should be tighter, like you would see on the front face, which should be ½ inch.
And then you come off where you've got an intersection of a brick wall, the inside corner just to the left. If you went around, you can already see the mortar joint cracked where those two brick walls intersect.
Yeah.
There's a I'm going to use the term control joint, some type of joint that's got a back rod and a caulk, which I thought the back rod and caulk portion looked fine. Where those two brick walls meet, there's a continuous crack pretty much from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, we were just discussing that earlier. It's anywhere you have a brick return on the building, there's an expansion joint. But since we put the expansion joint 8 inches away on the mock-up panel to explore the different colors, the mason didn't install an expansion joint where that brick returns at the wall. But you are correct. Everywhere the brick returns on the building, there will be an expansion joint.
Okay.
Avoid that type of cracking.
Yep. And again, I couldn't tell or track all of the weeps in different, different areas. And I'm expecting that when you do that, it's not going to change the appearance of the building. We might see some rope coming out or tubes or something, but, is there a sealant that's going to be installed above the vent? The vent, I don't know if it was for a dryer or for a, I don't know what it's for, but is there any kind of sealant, or is that sealant handled between the back of the vent and the wall itself?
For the actual dryer vent, the dryer vent should be set in sealant, and I don't think there's an actual sealant joint around the perimeter, but I can verify that.
Well, and it just, the way it is right now, if it were installed, water would definitely go between that and the building. And that's what I was, the same with the light. And my concern with that is only if it changes the appearance.
Right.
And then Tori, I have a question for you. If in the future, the mock-up packages that are not complete will be deferred, did Ted and them know that it needed to be complete? And if so, then why not defer this? I'm just interested.
That's a great question. And I'll be the first to say it. I believe that it was part of the final review staff comments that the mock-up review should have the details. We were looking at this as sort of a simpler mock-up, and and I think that's why we just allowed it to go through without those details included.
Fair enough.
And I also, James, there is a picture in our pictures that shows that hole that you were talking about at the top of the window.
Okay.
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, that'd be.
Well, actually, I can't pull it up, but it's photo. It ends in 409, Lawrence. If you want us to pull it up, you can get it.
There should not be any holes behind between the window and the brick. I can.
It's between the brick and the lintel and on the jamb. I believe that's what James was looking at.
Let's see.
I have it pulled up. I could probably.
And then Jordan, while this is happening,
Sure.
If the plans show, and I just couldn't see it, or I missed it either way. If the plans show that there's going to be this big gap in these columns and we approved it, then we approved it. But it seems unfortunate.
I'm going to follow on there with what Jimmy is saying. Ted, is there a quality control issue on the presentation of that joint in the columns? Anything to be done to clean that up?
That's a pretty standard joint, in my opinion, on FRP columns.
Okay.
Lawrence, you have the screen right now. Do you mind if I share a picture and then I'll hand it back to you?
Lawrence, this is Luda also. I just sent you another picture. I guess we were all taking them independently. I should share previously, but to me, there's a lot of issues with all kinds of joints, not just at the column or cornice or transitions. There's a transitions between the, like in this window and the frame around, and the sealant is so huge, it's almost and unclean, almost 1 inch, and sort of cut off in odd places. Also between corner transition between this whole metal bay and the brick is very wide, and this kind of white joint, and on and on and on about all that. So anyway, that's, again, I think all that been noted by staff, but looking at the pictures, it makes sense to
I can
see
clarify
what is
that
going on.
if it would be helpful.
Sure, yes, please, Mr. Rich, if you want to respond, now's the time.
So on that projected bay window that you're looking at right there, on the actual building, the projected bay projects out quite a bit. I mean, it projects out further. We tried to scale it down for the mock-up panel. So the bay is hitting the brick right there at a 45, or I think it's less than, I think it's like a 35-degree angle. Whereas on the actual building, it turns back at 90 degrees to the brick. So you get a more controllable joint on the actual building. And then I think the sealant color on this was one of the lighter colors that we're exploring. So the actual sealant color on the building where that material would return to the brick is actually going to be that buckskin color that matches the mortar.
So, Mr.
I guess what is going to be is not what is represented on this mock-up, and that's what we are looking at. We are looking at the mock-up and craftsmanship there. So, and you're saying color will be that and color will be this, but we do not know what it will be.
Okay.
This is Leon Scott. Not a lot to add other than it was interesting when I walked up to the mock-up. I too thought that the column seemed somewhat in an odd location, and again, it works for me. It just seemed a little odd, but in agreement almost with everyone. The concern that everyone has, particularly with the column seal, that it just does not look good. You can see the split all the way down, and it's pretty wide. And I don't know what to do about that. Right there, that split there is so obvious and noticeable.
Further board comment? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion from a member of the board. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I'm thinking.
Okay, that's fine. If we need a minute to think about it, that's okay too. I will take that to mean you are formulating a motion, and I'll give you the floor when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not positive I am, but I'm
Okay, that's fine. Let's take a minute. While still in session, of course.
Mr. Chairman, can I, with your permission, ask Tori a question?
Of course.
Can we talk through this
Sure.
the application of the column? And Ted said that for the most part, and Ted, I may not say this exactly as you said it, but for the most part, that's the way every column is going to look. And first off, I hope that's not the case with the crack in the grout or the caulk that's going down the side. But I took it to mean it would be about that wide, and everyone's going to be about that noticeable. And should we have expected that, known that, when we gave approval for the use of this? I don't want to make a motion that would deny this mock-up for things that they could redo that joint, but it's going to basically look the same way?
I'm gonna have to defer to Lawrence. Lawrence, sorry. Can you help me answer that one? With your experience working with those.
Okay, and fair enough. And Lawrence, I thank you for answering it. But you know, even if it is going to be that width, the application of that caulking material is cracked now.
Yeah.
May I interject quickly?
Yes, please.
This is not first column of that material we are seeing and people are using around the city. So, and this is not the worst one I have seen, but at the same time, I think it's much more manageable in it that with the care, it could be a smaller joint. So I just think this application, what we see here is just on the worst side of the typical application, what it should be with this material. Excuse me. So in my mind, I think we're all saying it's kind of unacceptable. And again, to me, this 1 inch or whatever joints on the cornices even worse, all around the windows. So I think this whole joint issue with this mock-up is really questionable. So I do not know if we should ask for reinstallation of those items.
Thank you, Luda. Further, actually, Lawrence, are you prepared to respond to Mr. Metter's question?
Sometimes it really depends on our experience with the architects and contractors to a large extent, and some people we know that we can work with in the field and get them much better, and some folks that we have very little comfort about. In this case, I think that we can work with the applicant on these joints and get them a lot better. I think the issue with this mock-up is largely in the sealants, and sealants are really one of the less shall I just say onerous things that we deal with when things are under construction. So they are things that can be tweaked and manipulated, or if needed, just simply reworked.
So
I would like to ask you another question very quickly. This next mock-up panel for 31, for next building, is that has a similar elements?
It does. It's got a lot more actually going on than this one. So it should be a lot broader application of elements.
So if we will see the next one with what we asking for correction on this one, so maybe, like you said, we can work with the applicant to perform much better on the next one, because it's still same construction and same contractor, I guess.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion.
Just a compromise
I think
here.
that's a great observation, Luda. Yes, Mr. Metters, you have a motion.
I do, and I would make a motion for deferral of the mock-up. And the reason is the request of the applicant was to bring this separate from the rest of the project. So we need to deal with it separately. And this is not denial, this is deferral. And with staff comments and the comments by board members. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Metters. Your motion, as I understand it, is a motion for deferral of this mock-up panel at this time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second to Mr. Metters' motion?
This is Leon. Scott, I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. We have a motion and a second. I will therefore call the roll. Ms. Sobchak, how do you vote on this motion?
Okay, yay in favor.
Mr. Scott?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yay in favor.
And myself, John Robinson, yay in favor. The motion for deferral carries and is unanimous. Mr. Rich, I want to thank you for your work on this, and I'm sure we will get all of this ironed out.
Okay, is there a clarification?
If you need opportunity, yes, sir. If you need to, what would you like clarified?
I would like to clarify if the entire panel is deferred, or if certain aspects of the panel could be approved, such as brick and window.
It is my understanding, but I'll get Mr. Metters to confirm it, that it is a deferral as to the whole mock-up and that no individual elements are approved. Was that your understanding, Mr. Metters?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is my understanding as well.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Parrish, do we have any other agenda items?
There is no other business. Thanks.
Is there anything for the good of the board or general welfare?
I wish I had something interesting, but I don't.
Okay, well, it is 5:15 on a Wednesday. I hope if you have not already had the opportunity, you get the time to go outside and air out and enjoy the beautiful weather we're having today. And I look forward to convening in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chairman.
staff. Thank you,
you.
board.
For you.